iteration 7, 2, 9, 4, 5, 3, 1. Bienvenue à Lost All Caps.
Nice.
That's
I
a
like
fun
that
one.
right?
That's a good one. Oh, I really went into a Eurostar voice then, didn't I? Bienvenue à...
You know what it just makes me think of? That train we were on the way to Nantes, where he went like, he was talking about the catering cart, except the only words we caught were sandwich, burger.
Yeah, I forgot about burger.
And it was all we caught was sandwich and burger, and that was it. And we just had no idea what else he was saying.
No, I was quite proud of that one, I can't lie. I thought of that one a while ago.
That was a very good one.
And I made sure to write down the number when we rewatched it, so that's the right number for all of you super fans out there. It's the right number.
What's one of the numbers that they say during that scene?
Well, yeah, but... So welcome to Lost All Caps.
Welcome to season 1, episode 2,
Yep.
the pilot part 2.
Pilot part 2. I am Ariel.
And I am Velvet, and,
Yeah.
so let's get right into it. Dun-dun. So, opening thoughts. Do you have any opening thoughts on this episode? Any, I really like this episode. I think, obviously, it doesn't have the same immediate impact as episode 1.
As in the opening isn't quite as dynamic.
Yes. Although
Agreed.
I would say the ending is great. It's better than the ending of episode 1. Mm-hmm. I would venture to say.
I'd agree.
So
I'd hard agree.
I think it's like it's a curve, you know? Mm-hmm. Beginning of episode 1, down, and then we have episode 2.
Yeah.
But this episode actually starts with a flashback, which is...
Yes, we get a little scene, don't we?
In classic. We get, there's like a tiny bit.
There's a little bit with Kate saying to Charlie, what were you doing in the bathroom? And he says, I was throwing up. And then we get an extreme,
our flashback.
We
lingering
find
out what he was
close-up
really
on
doing.
Charlie's face.
Yes, and this
No
was,
flashback.
I found interesting. They actually mentioned it in the audio commentary, but I also noticed it when we were watching, is they said they made a joke, like this was back when we used to do, we could do flashbacks without the noise.
Yes.
And obviously, if you know the show, you know the notorious flashback noise that like
flashback
build
noise.
up and they're like, bum. But actually, there is a sound transition between these, but it's the like tapping.
Yes.
It's the ring tapping against the table, which actually I probably shouldn't tap the table.
I know, I was tempted to. For anyone watching on Instagram can see that I have many, many rings. And I was tempted to.
Do
and
the
also, I'm a big fan of Charlie's chipped nail varnish in this scene.
Yes. So this is what something I was gonna mention
Love
last
that.
episode, but I was like, we haven't actually seen very much of it. It's one of the things I love about in this episode a little bit more so. You get these little kind of bits of like normal life. Like Charlie has nail varnish on, Sawyer we see has like hair gel in. But then immediately, like I remember we didn't even remember that, and then we looked at the DVD cover and we were like, why does his hair look like that? It's like in the pilot.
Yeah.
It's all gelled back, and you had those little things like that kind of come in.
I think that would be my main issue on the
Let me
island.
see.
My
No
hair
makeup.
would not
Your hair,
survive.
yeah. This thing, I was also thinking that though. I was like, if I was on the island, I'd probably cut it all off straight away.
Immediately. This is before you even knew the rescue boat could be coming in 2 hours.
Rescue boat could be here in
You're
20
already
minutes. I've
chopping your
shaved
hair
my
off.
hair. I would be like, because I would just be like, it's so hot. Like, you can imagine how hot and how horrible and humid and awful it is.
Yeah.
But like, my hair bothers me at the best of times. Like, it's summer right now, my hair is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I always want it tied up. So I would just be like, I would be finding a pair of scissors and I would just be cutting it off. I would just be like, I'm not doing this.
You're not allowed to take hairspray onto a plane.
No, because
So
it's
I'd
an
be
aerosol.
fucked
So you would be,
immediately.
yeah.
Because you can't do a mohawk without hairspray.
No.
And that's a fact.
And your dye as well.
Yeah, dye would
It
immediately...
would end up like a weird sort of bleached,
Yeah.
kind of
Ooh, it
light
wouldn't be
blue
a good
colour.
look. I'd have to shave it off.
You'd have to get rid of it, yeah.
So the plane comes to pick everyone up and everyone's like, oh my god, thank you so much. And then it just like pans around to us two. We just both stood there with shaved heads like, hello.
Like, you know that episode of Powerpuff Girls where Blossom has the terrible haircut?
That would be us! Oh my god!
Yeah, they'd be like, what happened to you two? Were you mauled by bears? And we're like, no. We wanted haircuts.
Unfortunately not.
It's interesting because a lot of the characters' hair gets a lot longer over the course of the show. I'd be cutting mine off.
Yeah, immediately.
Anyway, how do we get here? So we see Charlie on the plane, and we find out, the real reason he wanted to come on the trip, because his heroin was in the toilet.
Mm-hmm. We should probably give a little content warning for discussion of drug use. Maybe.
So maybe you should have said that before I said heroin was in the toilet.
Yeah, the heroin was in the toilet.
We're going to be talking
content
about
warning. We're talking about
and drug addiction.
Yeah, and addiction. Again, we were talking about in the last episode about the Stephen King book The Stand, and how like the Lost kind of adopts some of those features in that they're thinking about like what are the worst possible situations to be stranded on desert island. So like if you're heavily pregnant, if you can't speak English and everyone around you can speak English, you've also got Charlie battling an addiction.
It's awful, yeah, and things get a lot worse for him.
Yeah.
And we see that kind of start to happen in this episode, in that he has to hide a couple of times. Is it only once? He goes around the back of like the trees away from everyone else, and he kind of like digs the heroin out of his pocket and stuff.
Yeah.
It was kind of fun finding this out like for the first time, because it's like before this, Charlie seems to be like purely a comic relief character.
Yeah.
Like he just like, he's silly and he's having fun. He comes along and all he does like the whole time they're like in the cockpit, he's making jokes because he's been like, I'm fine by the way, you know.
Yeah.
I'm all like, and he seems to just be like silly, and he doesn't even see the pilot.
No.
Because he's in the bathroom. But like, I think, yeah, it was kind of crazy being like, oh, okay, he's actually like got stuff going on, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Also, that stunt in the bathroom, crazy plot armor from Charlie
cool.
Pace.
We had contrasting reactions.
It is cool. No, it's really cool. It's really very cool.
I love
and he hits the roof, and then he falls down again. It's very cool. But also, I'm like, insane plot armor moment from him, in that he's in the bathroom when the plane starts to crash. He doesn't make it into a seat. I remembered that incorrectly. To my memory, the entire, like, he was in the bathroom the whole time. But I now realise...
Obviously not,
but he's not,
he would have ended up in the cockpit.
I remembered wrong.
You cockpit.
Thank you. But yeah, he does make it into a seat, obviously. But, like... plot armor goes wild on that one.
But I love that sequence because you get the overlap with Jack's
with him running
flashback,
past Jack. No,
which
that's
is really
cool.
fun. And I love, there are lots of moments to look for. If you love that kind of thing, there are lots of moments to look forward to throughout the series.
Lots of brilliant sort of little tiny connections between people's stories.
Particularly in flashbacks overlapping.
Yes, especially, which is always very good fun.
It's so much fun. Love it. So there's something we need to talk about. There's an elephant in the room that we need to address.
Yes.
So the moment when Charlie rushes into the bathroom, he locks the door. He takes his shoe off, which by the way, I swear those are like shoes
kicks
that I saw kids wearing when I was at school.
I recognize those shoes. A lot of Charlie's kind of aesthetic. I'm like, I know so many people who dress like that. Yeah. You know, which is very funny.
Anyway, he gets the drugs out of his shoe and he takes them, and there's a close-up on his face where he's kind of like, his eyes go a bit like droopy or a bit like out of focus or something.
And it's obvious that he's like, you know...
Yes.
Getting there.
And at that moment, we're sat on the sofa watching this with our parents.
For the first time.
First time with our parents. Our mum looks over at us and goes, "Naughty Hobbit."
Naughty Hobbit. Naughty Hobbit.
Naughty Hobbit.
And then that, just any time I think Charlie did anything remotely bad.
Oh, Naughty Hobbit.
For the rest of the show. Naughty Hobbit.
All the time.
Naughty Hobbit.
I think about it a lot. Because obviously I said in the last episode we watched Lord of the Rings after watching Lost, so the entire 3 movies I was like, Naughty Hobbit. But yeah,
Naughty Hobbit. So it's very difficult to talk about Charlie sometimes without just thinking
Naughty Hobbit.
Yeah.
It's so I can't. We got to get our mum on the podcast at some point.
We will bring her in.
She's ridiculous. She comes out with things like Naughty Hobbit, just unprompted,
Just off the
cuff.
We get also one of my least favourite shots in the entire show.
Oh, this might be related to my next note, which simply says the word misogyny.
Yes. One of the worst shots in the entire TV show. And this is where we get some of the stereotypes coming in, and some of the things we like a bit less about the show.
To put it lightly.
Is that one very long shot, feet to head, of Shannon in the bikini.
Doesn't need to be there.
It doesn't need to be that long.
No.
It doesn't need to linger. Why is she in the bikini? I know, because, like, she doesn't really care about, like, helping the others, and she just wants to, like, you know, she's laying out in the sun. And I know the point of that is a little bit to be, like, she's not great, and then it sets up her wanting to help later. But also, does it need to be that revealing? No. Also, you can buy that as, like, an action figure.
Yeah, which is creepy.
Which is weird. Because you can't get any of the naked men as action figures. I say any of the naked men as if there's a lot of naked men.
Yeah. One thing we wanted to... Obviously, we've encouraged lots of new viewers to watch the show. We're hoping people are watching along with us and listening to this as first-time viewers. One thing we wanted to reassure you is that all of this male gaze stuff eases off. It does.
It gets less male gazy as it goes on.
Yeah. It's not great, and it really pisses me off.
Yeah.
These first few episodes especially.
The first few...
Because there's a lot.
Yeah.
And it just... And, like, it doesn't even stop with that shot, because then Claire chimes into the conversation, and it reveals her to be part of it by zooming out and showing us her legs. Yeah. And it's like, we don't... Just fucking film her face. It's not hard.
There's in this episode, there's also Kate washing in the ocean.
Oh, we'll get to that, girl. I've got another misogyny note coming up.
Do we want to discuss that now, or do we want to discuss that later?
We can discuss that now.
I think we can cover that now.
This is what I've written.
I don't think I wrote anything about
I hate the male gaze, full stop. She doesn't even wash the tank.
Yeah, she doesn't even wash her clothes.
We have a sort of running, ongoing thing between us of Kate's dirty tank top.
That thing goes through the ringer.
Oh.
Kate's tank... We didn't even realise she was wearing it. She's wearing it in the crash.
Yeah.
Under her shirt. She wears it pretty consistently throughout the whole show.
Yeah. A lot of the characters have costume changes. This is
something I really love about the show, actually, about the design of the show, is that the outfits are repeated. And it's something, like, it's weird because I noticed it, you know? At first I was like, oh, this is strange. Because in a lot of, like, you know, long-running TV shows, like sitcoms and stuff, the characters don't tend to wear the same clothes. Even in something like, I don't know, off the top of my head I'm thinking, like, Friends.
Yeah.
You don't really ever see them wearing the same things.
Not really.
But in Lost, each character has about 3 or 4, like, shirts that they rotate throughout the whole show. Like, there are outfits that you see in series, like, 4, 5, 6 that you also see in 1.
Yeah.
That I think is really great.
It is great.
Because I think it's really realistic, you know? It's like, they just go through the suitcases. They find, like, a few shirts. Also, they really consistently wear clothes for, like, a long time. Like, you'll see a character wearing, like, the same shirt over the course of, like, an in-show week. Because you're like, they're not changing their clothes.
They're not changing their clothes, and they're sleeping in the same clothes.
And they sleep in their clothes and all of that, and I think that is a really fun kind of aspect of the show.
Yes. However, it is really funny with Kate's dirty tank top.
It's because it's white as well. Yeah. It's white, and then it just gets muddy and muddy and muddy and muddy. And it ends up looking awful.
And it consistently sticks with her. It's one of the only... She changes into an orange top in this.
Yeah, she has an orange t-shirt, because this is after that shot.
Yeah.
She ends up with the orange t-shirt on.
But quite often she's seen in the dirty tank top, and it just makes us laugh. We're like,
we like
here she goes again.
It's my favourite character. But yes, that shot of her is...
Lost's first gay character. Kate's dirty tank top.
But that shot of her washing, insane.
Oh my God, I hate
insane. The underwear, why is she wearing that underwear? It makes no sense.
I've got no time for it, because it's just like, I don't even want to discuss it, to be honest, because I'm just like, we all know the only reason it's in the show.
We know why it's in the show.
And it's just horrid.
So back to the beginning of the episode, we have actually, I've written down, Claire tries to bond with Shannon, but it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
In the, of course, the bikini scene. I think, like, she's trying to sort of chat.
Oh my God, yeah, this conversation, like, I did not register this at all, or remember it, really. But when we rewatched it, I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. It's, like, the worst written dialogue I've ever heard. It, like, it seems so stilted and completely unrealistic.
They just don't.
But they end it with an absolutely devastating line.
I know.
And I was like, what have I just watched? What have I just witnessed?
It's interesting. First of all, beginning of the conversation is that your boyfriend? Regarding Boone and Shannon. And I think, what about Boone's behaviour towards Shannon would indicate that it's her boyfriend?
Oh, I thought they were in a relationship when it first started, yeah.
Because I was like, I just thought, I was like, they're linked as characters.
Yeah.
But I was like, they're horrible to each other.
They are.
So they're not, I don't think they're dating, because they seem to not like each other very much. So then when she said brother, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense, because it's like, they kind of have to talk to each other, but they don't seem to like each other at all.
No, I agree that their dynamic makes much more sense as brother and sister. I think I just assumed, because they were, like, clearly knew each other on the plane, that they were in a couple.
Yeah, and then Shannon and Claire, the thing is, I'm like, yes, it is badly written dialogue, but also with what we know about Claire and Shannon, outside of that, I'm like, well,
they don't really get on.
They don't really, like, you know. And I think what it is more than anything is the kind of attempt at a bit of, like, connection, but it just kind of doesn't quite work. Mm-hmm. Which is a bit sort of, for Claire's journey this episode, is like, you know, she's trying to make those conversations, because obviously then we find out she hasn't felt her baby move, which is very upsetting. I
mean, it's just such a devastating line, and you're like, fuck.
And you're like, well.
And for it to come after that scene is just insane. I can't even. The shift.
The tone shift is crazy.
Blows me away more than anything else.
Yeah, I get whiplash.
Completely.
Yeah. Then we get the Korean couple.
Yes.
And
Michael.
Michael coming in and coming to talk to them.
I quite like this scene I
like that scene.
I think they're all very good actors, and you can really tell.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that the kind of strategic lack of subtitles really comes into play, and it comes into play a lot with these guys, but in this scene it's kind of the first time you see it, because you've seen them speak to each other before, I believe, and it's like, you have to stay close to me or whatever, but you have the subtitles. But in this scene, it's like, you get the kind of, you have to just figure out what they're saying. So you're, like, put in the role of Michael, where you just have to kind of figure out what it is that they're saying, and that's it. And there's, some brilliant acting from them in this section. And
we talk often about Harold Perrineau's superior acting skill.
Harold Perrineau is a brilliant, incredible, amazing actor. And there are a few moments which we will mention when we get to them. Particularly heavy.
But it starts at this point.
Yeah.
You know? Because, I mean, a lot of what he's doing otherwise is kind of like, you know, yelling for Walt and all of that.
Yes, that's the first time you see him in episode 1. He's running around and he's calling out Walt.
Yeah, but this scene, his subtle facial expressions, it really, to me, it's like, oh wow, you know?
Yeah, no, it is really, he's just brilliant. And I don't know if it's immediately after. Yeah, I think it's straight after we see Walt then in the forest.
Yes, that's right.
With the dog lead.
Because he's looking for Walt, isn't he?
Because Michael's looking for Walt, and then we see where Walt is, and then Michael finds Walt at the end of that scene.
So, here we have the reveal of Vincent is the dog.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. I've written it down here. I don't know if I'm really stupid, but even now, I didn't realise Vincent was the dog.
What?
I didn't realise Vincent was the dog until later in this episode, when, like, Jack is talking to Michael.
Sorry, I thought you just said that you never figured out that Vincent was the dog. We've watched the show through twice.
No, I know Vincent is the dog. I mean, at this moment, I guess I just didn't clock that it was a dog lead that he was holding.
Right, okay.
So I was just like, he's looking for Vincent. We know he's looking for Vincent. Vincent could be anyone.
Okay, you are stupid.
I know.
We're clearly supposed to know it's the dog
at
this point.
I didn't get it.
To be fair, you might not necessarily link the dog that we saw right at the beginning with
because also that's the only time we see the dog.
Yeah.
We haven't seen the dog yet, like this episode, you know? Like, I just didn't clock it. I know I'm stupid for it, but I didn't get it. But this is a great scene. It's a great scene between Walt and Michael as well, with them arguing. Because it's like you see a lot of what you see Michael doing in the beginnings of his character is like he's trying to keep Walt safe.
Yeah.
And Walt is not having it.
Just doesn't care, to be honest.
He's just like, well, I want my dog. And I think that's a great kind of introduction to their relationship. Yeah. No, I think it's a great scene. I also think they're very well cast. They look very similar.
They do.
And I think you get that a lot in the scenes where it's like alternating on their faces. The like shot, reverse shot scenes. Where you're just like, yeah, I believe it. I believe that that's father and son, you know?
Yeah, it is definitely well
that's
acted.
Good. And they're both, and he's like he's really good. I think like it's difficult with child actors to find someone who, you know, who is genuinely very good. But I think he's really quite talented, and he does a really good job across the show in general. But like you get to see that in episode 1, all you really see of him is like he's asleep on like a bit of wood.
Yeah, he doesn't really say
the
much.
kind of impact of that is that you're like, oh, there's a little boy who's also in the plane crash.
Again, it's another awful sort of
awful
person
situation.
To be in this situation.
But that actually, this is when you first kind of get his character, and I think it's always done very well. But yeah, I think it's a nice kind of thing. And then of course we get the handcuffs in this scene as well, which is where we get the brilliant introduction of Sawyer.
Is it brilliant?
Wherein the first thing we see him doing is being racist.
Being violent and racist.
And
I mean, that fight scene.
That fight scene is brilliant.
It is good apart from the fact he chucks sand at him. Like, I get what they're going for.
I think it's
and
funny.
It isn't done in a goofy way, but there is something slightly goofy
No,
about
there is a little bit. It's because they're both so insistent on just getting at each other's throats. Like, there's a quite a little bit of a goofy bit at the end of the fight where they're fighting, where they're being dragged apart, and Saeed is like grabbing onto Sawyer's trousers and he's just like trying to get back, like climb back up him, which I just think is really funny. Yeah, so we get Sawyer. I don't like him.
We are Sawyer haters.
To be quite frank, I don't like him. I think the first thing we see him doing is being racist, because he's immediately assuming that Saeed is a terrorist just because he's Iraqi.
Yeah, and they found these handcuffs.
And they found the handcuffs.
Thank you so much for observing my behaviour.
Saeed, we get a little bit of Saeed's sass, which I greatly enjoy. It's when he's like, go on, tell them how I crashed the plane.
Go on then.
Thank you so much for observing my behaviour. Like, I always like a good Saeed sass moment. And the handcuffs obviously bring in a little bit of mystery. If there's a criminal, what do we do? Because they're all in this together. They've already kind of got this sort of bond going on. But like suddenly if they find out one of them is a horrible criminal, what do they do in that situation?
Yeah.
And of course we find out before they do.
Yes.
That it's Kate who was in the handcuffs.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about that. I know we're jumping around in terms of chronology, but if you're watching Lost, you should be okay with that, because it's going to happen a lot in the show. I want to talk about the Marshal. I love the Marshal.
Ariel's obsessed with the Marshal.
I love the Marshal as a character.
And not only do we have a criminal, we have a member of law enforcement.
Yes. And like when you get to know a bit more of her backstory, I'm going to do this without spoiling anything. Their relationship is really interesting between Kate and the Marshal. And it's like when he says like, where is she? It's like, oh, you know, he wants to trap her and control her, and he wants her to be under his custody. Despite the fact that they're on an island, like, none of this matters.
Like, this guy wakes up from having, like, shrapnel pulled out of his chest, and he's like, where's the criminal?
That's his immediate thought.
You know, he's not like, am I going to survive? And that's a really interesting feature of his character, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, and the concept of the criminal at all is so interesting, and also that we don't know what they've done. Like we know if it has to be serious enough for a marshal to be escorting them on a plane back, you're like, you know, it's something serious, but you don't know what she's done. No. And you know, at this point, Kate is our second main character.
Yeah.
We like Kate, and it's an interesting thing of how you learn to like these characters before you find out about their pasts. And it's like you evaluate them based on what they've done on the island, more so than you do what they've done off the island. Because then immediately the scene after the fight over the handcuffs, we have Saeed looking at the radio with Hurley, and there's a very nice scene of like, people of colour solidarity, in which Hurley is like, ignore Sawyer, he sucks. That like, this is like, Naveen Andrews, who plays Saeed, is so brilliant in this scene, because it's the way he says, like, he's very open, and Saeed is very honest about his past, which is obviously the opposite to Kate. It's the moment where he says, I was in the Republican Guard, and then he looks to Hurley because he wants to know how he's going to react, and he wants to know if Hurley's going to take back all these nice things that he's just said to him. And it's so, like,
great.
It's brilliant. It's just so incredible.
Yeah. Because,
like, that is just, you know that from that, like, one look, you know? To know if Hurley's going to change his mind on what he thinks of him.
No, I do really like that scene. I do.
And I really like that he is honest about it. Because I think he's almost got this mindset of like, if they're going to turn against him, they may as well know what they're turning against him for. But also it's like he is like, but he's very kind of practical. And he's like, we need to fix the radio. Who cares if we don't like each other?
Yeah. Saeed is one of the most practical characters, I think.
Definitely. And we see that.
And he's also one of the most useful.
Like, 100%. Talk about the worst possible people to be in a plane crash with.
Yeah.
Saeed is one of the best possible people to be in a plane crash with.
100%.
Because he is the best person to be in a plane crash with, because it's like, he knows how to fix the radios.
Yeah.
He knows how to do all the, like, you know, the batteries and all that stuff. I wouldn't know any of that.
Yeah. He knows how to take the gun apart later in the episode.
He knows how to take the gun apart. He knows, like, he makes the fire. Can fight, which we see, obviously. The first thing we see him doing is making the signal fire with Charlie in episode 1.
No one else thinks to do that, do they?
Yeah. He's got it on lock. He's, like, he's great. He's so important. And I feel like he almost knows that. Like, he almost knows, like, he's helping them, so he's like, they can't be, you know, handcuffing him and being like, you crashed the plane, because he's the one who's going to fix the radio. Yeah. And I think that kind of gives him a little bit of confidence, in a good way, though. Not necessarily arrogance, but I think it gives him a nice kind of, like, he's sure of himself.
I think it's partially that, and partially also he's kind of not forgotten about the outside world, but he's very much focused on, like, this is what we need to do in order to get off the island.
Yes, 100%.
He's not bothered about what is happening in the outside world, or has happened.
So, we've made it to the scene with Kate.
Yes. So I was going to just sort of mention around here, I've just got a note of here of saying, like, in the beginning of the show, the villains are Sawyer and the Korean husband, I would say.
Yes, I would say so.
I'd say they're, like, kind of the villain characters, kind of the antagonists.
Of the people, of the character, obviously the monster in the woods.
Well, yes.
But we have, of the people we've met, they are the ones we don't like so far.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting, especially as the series progresses, because you've got, like, divisions within the survivors of the crash, as opposed to everyone being like, gang, we need to fight this monster.
And that's also, once again, it's very real in that they're like, you're in this plane crash, what do you do if you don't like that guy?
Yeah.
You can't just, like, leave, you can't walk away from these people that you don't like, because there is 48 of you and you're survivors of a plane crash, and you're bound to not like at least some of them. And that is it creates some really interesting dynamics between the characters, definitely, as the show goes on. And the more we learn about them, of course, and the more they learn about each other, it creates some very interesting moments.
But then, of course, you've got some sort of, like, possibly morally grey characters like Kate and Saeed, some that we're learning a bit more about now.
Yeah, this episode kind of creates a question mark over Kate, where we're like, previously, she's she's a hero, she's our protagonist, and then suddenly it's like, can we trust her? But then on the flip side, is the Marshall a villain?
Exactly.
Is Kate a villainous character, or is the Marshall a villainous character? Because those two can't, they can't just coexist. No.
Which is why he's such a good character.
He's a very interesting character. And I was going to say, it's interesting you brought up the Koreans, because that was my point about the scene with Kate where she's washing, is that what I do like about that is that the wife comes and talks to Kate, and obviously we don't know what she's saying, but presumably she's saying something along the lines of, like, they want to talk to you back up at the beach. And I like that we see her, that in this episode we see both of them kind of separate and try and make connections with other people in the crash. Yes,
completely true, actually.
That we see them fishing, and then obviously the husband goes out and he tries to give fish to Hurley, and then he gives some fish to Claire. But we also see her go and speak to Kate, and I think that's like a nice sort of... It feels like, I don't know about you, but definitely looking back, it feels like they're very isolated at the beginning.
100%.
And they're very, like... It's just the two of them.
Yeah, well, he literally says we don't need to worry about anyone else.
But I think it's really interesting to see that they do still try and make those connections.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about that scene.
Yes.
As much as it's not... I like that we see her. I don't like the rest of the scene.
Yeah. One question I've got for you...
Go on.
...is we have been talking about off the air. Offline. We've been talking about, when do we get the scene that makes the show pass the Bechdel test?
Yes.
Does this count?
Does that count?
Because we've got two characters... Well, actually, she doesn't have a name yet.
We don't know her name. Yes, that's true.
She presumably has one.
She has a
character,
but we don't know
is not named at the minute.
We don't know her name
it
yet.
Doesn't count. But possibly the next scene, which I believe is the next chronologically, where Shannon is crying when she sees the
there's a little bit before that I've got written down.
Okay.
So there's a little scene between Michael and Walt where Walt has the comic book.
Oh yes, okay.
And that's when and I really like that scene, because also we get a bit of a question mark over those guys in that scene, because Michael asks, like, can you read Spanish? And Walt says no, he's just looking at the pictures.
Yeah, and you're like, surely he'd know.
Wouldn't he know that? Because he's his dad. And also we get we learn that, well, what Michael learns that Vincent is alive in that scene, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I was talking about plot armor with Charlie. Vincent survived the crash.
Yeah.
Which is, he's got ultimate plot armor.
Yeah.
And that's a really lovely bit.
It also gets his age wrong.
Gets
as
his
well,
age wrong,
which is
yeah.
a really interesting bit.
Again, so interesting. We learn some things
well acted.
Because we don't learn very much about those guys in episode 1.
No, not at all.
And it's something in general I really like about this episode, is that we get to, in episode 1, it's like we see Jack and Kate and Charlie, really.
Yeah.
And then in episode 2 we get to learn all these different characters, and it's more like we're being told, okay, these are the people you need to know.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
The other thing, we get Charlie going off to hide to take the heroin again before we see Shannon.
Yeah.
But that's just a tiny thing.
Yeah. And also the comic book in Spanish.
Comic books in Spanish, which is, where did he get that from?
Yeah. Who speaks Spanish on the
Who
plane?
speaks Spanish? This is when I had a running joke in when we first watched Series 1 about how Vincent speaks Spanish.
Yeah.
I was like, it's Vincent's comic book. He speaks Spanish.
Obviously. I don't even know where that theory came from.
I don't remember. I don't know why I came up with it. I think we were just talking about who does it belong to. And I just, I don't know. It just, Vincent speaks
Spanish.
But yes, so you were saying Shannon sees...
Yeah, so I'd forgotten about this kind of emotional moment for Shannon. We're not massive Shannon fans.
I'm not a big Shannon lover. The first time we watched it, I really, really hated her.
Yeah.
She gets kind of less grating as it goes on, but I think it's just like you get a bit used to her, you know?
But the whole point is that she's supposed to be annoying.
Yeah, she's
somewhat of a...
Not necessarily a villain, but you're not supposed to like her very much, I don't think.
No.
And I think, again, it's just one of those things that you have characters that you don't like. And the same way that there would be people you don't like. Yeah. But yes, and Boone is quite mean to Shannon in this scene.
I mean, you really don't like Boone in this scene at all.
No, I quite like Boone, like, before, because it's like when he's just being, like, Jack's right hand, you're like, he seems quite nice, but this scene, he's really nasty to her.
He's awful.
Yeah, no, it's quite an interesting scene into their characters, and also their dynamic, in that Boone is just kind of seems to be trying to sort of irritate Shannon, get like a reaction out of her a lot of the time.
But also I think he's irritated by her.
Yes. I think he seems to be kind of upset that he has to now keep an eye on her, you know? Because they're in the crash, and he's trying to like help everyone else, but he's also like, he has to make sure
he feels like
she's alright. He feels like he has to, at least, and he's not happy about that.
No.
And this is, again, in their arguing, a lot of the character moments we get in this episode, there's a lot of kind of talking over each other. Do you think it's not common in TV?
No.
But you get, especially with those two, a lot of what they do is just argue over the top of each other all the time. But you get it quite a lot with a few of them, especially like Saeed and Sawyer as well. Do a lot of just yelling over each other. And you know it's just kind of petty, you know?
Oh, definitely.
Between Boone and Shannon, like, you know.
And also you can tell that it's accurate to real life because we as siblings have been talking over each other this entire time.
The whole time, yeah. So. Also you get Saeed's brilliant facial expression, which Boone and Shannon are arguing, and then it pans around and he's got like his hand on his chin and his like eyebrow raised. He's like...
But yeah, so I was going to say, I think Kate and Shannon say about 2 words to each other in amongst all of this.
Yeah, she goes like, come on, if you're coming with us, then come on, we're leaving.
Something, I seem to remember Shannon saying like, what are you, like 2 years older than me or something like that?
Yeah, because she's like, you shouldn't come with us.
Yeah.
And then, she's like, you don't have that much authority.
But I personally wouldn't count this as passing the Bechdel test.
I also think it's a conversation, it should be a conversation between 2 women.
Yes.
And it's a conversation between like 6 people that involves 2 women.
Yeah.
I think that doesn't quite count.
It doesn't quite qualify as a conversation, does it?
It's just kind of talking to
Yeah,
it's
so you're going to have to wait a couple episodes.
But it does happen.
To find the Bechdel test passing scene, and also when it does happen, it's so funny.
It's a great scene. It's the funniest possible
way to
passing of the Bechdel test scene.
We'll get there, but... I've got shut up and stop trying to be charming.
Shut up and stop trying to be charming.
A great line from Shannon there.
It is a good line
Hilarious. From Shannon. And also, there's one shot of Sawyer when he's sat on the curved...
Yes, that's a very cool shot.
I really like the way
he's
that's
like opening that letter up. Yes,
smoking, I believe.
He's smoking. And this is another thing with... We talked about Charlie's heroin addiction is like a big thing, but we see Sawyer smoking a good few times across the pilot, and it's never really
addressed.
And never really addressed after that. I think Hurley has like a line, he calls him like a chain-smoking bastard or something.
Yeah.
But that's it.
I love how you've said bastard and not... That's so British in comparison to what he says, which I believe is jackass.
I think it is jackass.
Which feels wrong coming out of my mouth, to be quite honest.
Yeah, but other than that, they don't really talk about that, and it's interesting in opposition.
But yeah, I love the way that's framed, and also I believe that's the same piece of metal that
falls
behind Charlie in Pilot Part 1.
Or at least narratively, I think it's supposed to be. I don't know if they use the same one.
Yeah, maybe not, but I think it's really cool, and that shot is framed really well. And then obviously you have Sawyer then joins the party.
Yes, and you don't really know why. He just kind of like, he sees them walk past and he just kind of gets up and goes with them. Which I think is interesting because as introduction to Sawyer's character, he seems quite separated. Like, he's quite blasé about being near any of the rest of them. And then suddenly he decides he wants to come on this journey, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. And we also have a very weird moment, which I didn't notice in any of the previous watch-throughs, which is Kate says something like, oh, so you're joining us now. And he says, I'm a complex guy, sweetheart. And then the sound design, for some reason, goes like, Bubba! Like, it's a really shocking moment.
He's a complex guy.
Bubba! Like, immediately after he says it as well.
He's a complex guy. I didn't notice that.
It's really odd.
That's very funny, though. Mm-hmm. Yes, but climbing up that hill, crazy.
Yes.
It looks so perilous. I'm like, personally, if I'd gone with them and then I'd seen that, I would have gone, actually, I'm gonna go back.
I'm good. You know?
I'll stick. I'll stick with it. We get another waltz scene.
Yeah, I was gonna just say, though, I think it's really interesting that Jack doesn't go on the hike.
It is, yeah.
Because if you're watching the show for the first time, you're like, well, of course he's not going on the hike. He has this patient that he has to attend to, the marshal, who is obviously in a critical condition. But if you've seen the show before, you know that usually that doesn't stop Jack from getting involved.
Jack, it's impossible to get Jack out of the action a lot of the time.
Yeah. He just feels like he's a bit of a controlling...
He's a bit of a control freak. He just, like, he needs to be involved.
He has to be there.
Yeah. I think it's like he gets FOMO. He's like, but what if something crazy happens and I'm not there for it?
But he clearly, that hasn't developed at this point.
Yeah, I think maybe that's an interesting part of his kind of character development, in that the more... Because at this point, not so much now, but a little bit later on in the beginning of the series, he really rejects the idea that he's in charge and that he's the leader, and he really hates it. He's like, he's just a doctor, he's just trying to help people. And maybe it's like more once he accepts that he becomes that, like, well, if you want me to be in charge, I'm gonna have to be part of everything.
Yeah.
But also, of course, narratively, they mentioned in the commentary that Jack was, of course, in the original draft supposed to be dead by now.
Yes.
So that this group was obviously collated after his death. So actually, it's kind of almost like he's stayed behind, but what is he doing now? He's with the marshal.
Yeah. They wrote that kind of.
They wrote that like scene in so that he would have something kind of to be doing rather than being in the main group. That's very interesting. But yes, the waltz scene, I love this scene.
Yes, so this is when we have our mysterious bald man.
Our mysterious silent stranger
finally
speaks for the first time.
And he starts, unprompted, talking about ancient Mesopotamia.
Yes, classic.
As you do.
Classic.
As
plane crash behaviour. I like this. I like as well, we get a little bit of waltz kind of... We get a little bit of a kid thing where he just sort of immediately spills all of his backstory. Yeah. He's like, oh yeah, my mum died. And you're like, whoa. Like, all of these adults are like so repressed, they're not talking about any of that. And then he's just like, yeah, this thing happened.
Yeah.
And kind of has no qualms about it. I think that's a really nice kind of kid moment for him.
That's very true. And also the guy's reaction.
He's just like...
You're having one hell of a month.
Bad month. And, like, he doesn't, like, patronise him in any way, which is really nice. He doesn't go, like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, that must have been horrible for you. He's just like, damn, that sucks. Anyway, do you want to play backgammon?
Yeah, he kind of doesn't treat Walt like a child, which is really nice, because they go on to have a few more
They spend a bit more time together.
A bit of a friendship, I would call it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice, because you've got, like, one of the oldest characters, if he'll pardon me saying that, and one of the youngest characters becoming friends.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of what Walt is seeking, because even already we've seen with Michael that he's very, I wouldn't say patronising, but he's very, like, untrusting of Walt's judgment. He's like, you have to stay and you can't go off on your own because you're not going to be safe.
Because he's trying to discipline him.
And obviously he's trying to protect his son, and I'm sure if I had a child that I was in a plane crash, I'd be like, don't leave me.
Yeah.
But it's like, Walt is kind of seeking that freedom and being treated like an adult, and that's kind of what he gets in this scene.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
And then what the viewer gets is crazy. I mean, God, we get so much to unpack here.
Yeah.
We've got, like, this sort of enigmatic game that he's talking about, and then the extreme close-up, which...
Extreme close-up on his face, holding up the two...
I don't know if it was. But, and then, do you want to hear a secret?
Do you want to hear a secret? What's his secret? We don't even know his name yet.
No, maybe that's the secret.
Maybe that's what the secret is. And that's a
My
really...
name is Bethany.
What?
That's his secret. My name is Bethany.
Oh, I thought that was a reference to something.
No.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really interesting scene, and it's obviously the first time we've heard him speak, and we know a lot of crazy things about this guy. Mm-hmm. And he seems very happy. He seems to be having a good time, which is, again, a massive contradiction to everything else that we've seen so far.
So I believe next we have another scene with the Korean couple when they are preparing some
where they're
food.
Fishing.
Yes, fish that they've caught.
Which is an interesting thing, because last episode we see Hurley handing out like airplane dinners.
Yeah.
It's a very nice scene between him and Claire where he gives her like extra food. But what we see here is these guys they're a little bit more self-sufficient. They're kind of going for the food that they can find rather than going into the plane and grabbing, getting what they can sort of scavenge.
And also we have no idea what the actual fish or food is, but like to Hurley it's completely unappetizing, but to Claire it's like rejuvenating. I mean,
that's a lovely scene.
Maybe it's a coincidence, but I always like to think that the
fish.
baby goes, whoa, what the hell is that?
Baby was like, whoa, where are we? And this is a lovely scene. Again, we see the connections made by the Korean couple, even though they don't speak English.
He's very reluctant, though. It's like, it's a nice moment,
no, but he
also...
comes up and he offers her the fish.
Yes.
That's his kind of moment of connection. But it is yeah,
she's
when
like,
he's like,
feel the baby
and he
kick.
kind of puts his hand up and he's like, no.
So I was like...
I think that's more of like an embarrassment thing, I think, than it is a... He doesn't want... It's not like she disgusts him. He's not like, get away from me. I think he's more like, oh no, I don't need to touch you.
Maybe, yeah.
And that's obviously a lovely moment with Claire where she, her baby moves and we know that the baby's okay.
Baby's alright,
which is really lovely.
Yeah, I love
that.
Just a
really, really sweet
And I love
scene.
that she's sat on the seats from the plane as well.
That's so fun.
That's
like, I imagine those
detail.
seats just fell there.
Yeah.
And she's just gone and sat down. I'm like, yeah. Because you don't want to be sitting on the ground, especially if you're pregnant. No, I think it's really, really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yes, and then we move on to one of the second biggest mysteries of the island, after, of course, the mysterious monster in the woods, which is the polar bear.
The polar bear. Which is not the monster. I feel like that's quite obvious because the noises are different. It was able to be killed really easily.
And, like, Charlie says, they say, is that what killed the pilot? And he's like, no.
Yeah.
That is a teeny version of what killed the pilot.
Yeah.
But this is a kind of, because you're like, what the hell? It's a polar bear.
What the hell is a polar bear
doing
in the jungle?
Is in the jungle. What's going on?
But also the gun.
Sawyer pulls a gun out of nowhere. I remember, it's a really interesting scene because when we first watched it, I wasn't like, whoa, where did the gun come from? I was just kind of like, well, they need to kill whatever's running at them. And I think that's kind of the feeling of everyone else in the group. They're all like, what the hell, there's a polar bear. And it's not until Kate goes, where did you get that gun from? That then myself and everyone, it seems, in the rest of the group is like, hang on, where did you get that gun from?
Yeah. I feel like I remember rolling my eyes a little bit at this because I was like, why do we need... They're like, we need to find a way to get guns on the desert island.
Yeah.
Do you know, we didn't need guns. But yeah, I was like... I was very surprised at the gun realisation. And I think I did notice it beforehand. But obviously, you're right to point out that Kate draws attention to it, and we all know why now.
Yes.
Because she is the prisoner who had the
But
marshal.
when this scene happens, we don't know that yet.
No, of course not.
And of course, she does some great acting in pretending she doesn't know how to use the gun.
Another great line from Charlie in that scene. Does anyone know how to use a gun? I think you just pull the trigger. Yeah, no, I think that's a very interesting scene. It's also got some a very tiny detail I noticed in that scene, purely because she kind of looked down, is Shannon's hairline is very much
classic 2000s like zigzag situation.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah, because like this, I don't know, I kind of vaguely remember it being an actual fashion thing. I've mostly seen it like online. I don't know if you remember like it being an actual thing to like make a fun pattern in your hairline.
Yeah.
As a thing in like 2010, like that her hairline is like a perfect zigzag down her head.
Wow.
And it made me laugh because she
That
like
is funny.
bends down to fix her shoe or something while like Sawyer and Saeed are yelling at each other, and I just noticed it and I wrote it down because it made me laugh.
One thing that I wanted to talk about in our last episode, Pilot Part 1, that I couldn't talk about then but can talk about now, is that Kate is obviously not there for the initial crash sequence because she's presumably in the jungle taking her handcuffs off.
Yes.
And when she finally emerges
The
to
first
the bit
time
with
you see
Jack,
her, yes.
she's rubbing her wrists. She
I
has her
noticed
hands
that.
around her wrists, and it's like because she was
When
taking her
she
handcuffs
comes out
off.
the jungle and she's holding her wrists, and then she like jumps when she sees Jack, and it's like she's like almost like she's like, oh my god, I've been caught, which is really, really interesting.
It's just such a fun little detail.
Yeah, tiny detail coming
It's great. I love
from Evangeline Lilly, which is brilliant. Yeah, I've got written down for this scene, I forget what it is exactly that he said, but I've just written, I hate Sawyer so much, oh my god. He'd said something. Oh, it was when he grabs Kate.
Yeah.
And he like whispers something threatening to her, and I was like, get off her.
Yeah, it's weird. Kate's very smart to sort of pull the gun off him and point it at him while she's...
No, she's very smart, and the more you kind of learn about her past, she's really good at dealing with these situations.
Mm-hmm.
Like because I think it's immediately after this scene, isn't it, that you see her on the plane.
Yes.
And a really significant moment in that scene that I really like, where it's a kind of almost proof that Kate is not a bad person.
Oh, yes, let's talk about this scene.
Is when she, the suitcase falls out of the luggage rack onto the marshal's head, and she puts his oxygen mask on before she puts on her own.
Well, first of all, you've got an incredibly, like, stressful moment where he's been knocked out, which, by the way, is a really cool stunt, and they
Very
do
cool
lots
stunt.
of things in the...
There's a lot of outtakes of that.
Yeah.
They had to throw that thing at him a lot of times.
It's made of polystyrene.
It was made of, like, foam, and there was, like, tubes in his head that would, like, emit blood.
But she's handcuffed to the table.
She has to grab his keys, doesn't she?
She
and
has
take
to
them
unlock
off.
it. She's reaching like this. She can't reach the oxygen mask, and oh my god, my heart was going.
It
I
is
was
crazy.
like, this
It's one
is
of those
such
things
an
where you
intense
think
scene.
they don't think about that. Like they don't think
This is
in
the
like
stand.
a marshal is not going to think, oh, but if I handcuff this criminal up, what if the plane crashes?
Yeah, I know. So I was like, wow, I love that.
It's a
detail.
brilliant scene.
It's so good.
And yeah, that moment that,
And then
that
she
Kate
puts his
his oxygen mask
on
on
as well.
first, that even this man who clearly hates her,
Yes.
because he's quite mean to her in that scene. We later see him wake up and like immediately threaten Jack with where is she? Like, but she still, she helps him before she helps herself, and I think that's a really kind of big thing for her character. That it's almost like, because we've seen her already, and you're already like, well, she seems like she's our hero, whatever, and then you find out she's the criminal. Then they're immediately like, but look, she's not a bad person.
Yeah.
And I think that's structured very well.
Definitely. Completely agree. Love that.
I love
plane
that scene.
sequence.
It's a brilliant scene. I love all the plane stuff, to be fair.
Me too.
I really like all the plane flashbacks.
Do you know what? Me too.
I think it's really good. I think it's really cleverly done as well. There's a lot of stuff in the behind the scenes documentary where they talk about how they had like just a camera that would just shake constantly, and that it was just all a solid set. And I think the way that it's shot to make it really looks so real.
It does. It really does.
It's really, really like, impressive. And I really love a lot of the stuff that goes on the plane.
Definitely. Agree. The handcuff reveal is so good as well. With her,
is brilliant.
reaching
The
for
way
the
she
glass
gets
of
the
juice. He says juice in such a menacing way as well.
Sure, don't want any more juice. He manages to make juice sound like an angry word, which is a feat.
It is. It really is.
The Marshals, I mean, I know you're more of a fan of the Marshal than I am.
He's great.
But,
and that bit where he wakes up and you see his bloodied hand grabbing Jack's shirt.
We see the bit where Hurley faints is great as well. We've kind of skipped over that bit. That's really funny.
That's very fun.
That's one of Jack's great moments where he just gets stressed, but not in like the world is ending way. It's when he's just like, Hurley, come on. Hurley, for the love of God.
Yeah.
Which is really funny, and obviously...
Talking about Boone being a terrible nurse, Hurley's even worse.
Yeah, he's like, Boone's gone up a hill. I'm gonna have to use Hurley. Should have used Rose. I love Rose.
She'd have been great.
She would have been so chill. Yes. Then we get them up the top of the mountain. The thrilling
scene.
The French.
We need to put the jingle back in. Scenes that are so important to me. This scene is so... It's one of my favourite scenes in, like, the entirety of Lost.
It's a very good scene.
I love this scene. It's shot so beautifully with the kind of, like, the panning circling round.
It's so dizzying.
All their faces. Dizzying.
You feel a bit ill watching it. Like, I watched it and I was like, oh my God, they need to stop the camera.
And the dialogue is just so snappy and brilliant.
I still remember, like, where we were watching it. We watched the first two back to back, didn't we, when we first watched it? And I was like... It's good. I was like, it's pretty good, but I'm not, like, going insane about it or anything. And I really vividly remember it's when Saeed goes 16 years. That was it. I was hooked. It was that. It was just that it's like, because you forget. He's like, he does it very quietly. He just goes, like, he kind of mutters the number. You hear him go, like, it's about 30 seconds long. And then everyone else is yelling over each other about the French message. And it goes silent. And it's just 16 years.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God.
It's delivered so brilliantly. He's such a great actor.
He's such a great actor.
Great little moment of realisation on Saeed's face. I don't even know what that's in reference to, but probably something in this scene.
I would imagine, yeah.
It's just so
I think
good.
It's probably when he realises that it's the same message, like...
Repeating.
Yeah. I mean, Naveen Andrews is such a brilliant actor. And this is kind of, he gets really jumps out.
And, like, the kind of emotional roller coaster that this scene takes you on of being, like, they've got bar of the signal... They can't transmit it because there's French playing. Why is there French playing? Shannon can translate the French. She can translate it badly. Then it goes back up to, like, the 16 years realisation. Then you got the battery dies, and you're like, oh, fuck, they're fucked. And then it's like, where are you left with? I mean, the last line of the episode is, where are we?
And you're like... Oh
so
my
true,
God.
Bestie. Where are we?
Yeah, Charlie, where are we? It's so insane. And it's like we, as a family, we are really into escape rooms.
We are.
We've done so many. We've set records before. We're like... Not to brag, but we did set a record once. And that moment, it felt like an escape room. Because there is that moment. Yeah. There's moments, if you've ever done an escape room, you'll understand the feeling where everyone's running around and you're all filling out different puzzles and everyone's kind of yelling clues over the top of each other. Or you've got like one person in one room reading like an alphabet off a wall and one person in the other room putting in the code on the like vault or whatever. And you're all yelling over each other, and then you'll kind of all go quiet, and then, like, it opens, or whatever. The padlock unlocks, the door opens, and it felt like that.
Oh, yeah.
It was that feeling, and I was like, I have to know what's going on.
100%. Completely agree.
And that was it, and I was hooked. And I remember we talked about it for quite a long time afterwards, and I was just like, that feeling that it gave me, I was just like, oh my God.
And it's so, like... having, like, the broadcast in French as well, and then, like, the iteration coming in English, and, like, I love the bit where he goes, the next number's gonna end in, like, 343 or something.
7, and
it does, happens. And you're like, oh, shit, Saeed's figured it out, oh my God!
And you're just like, oh my God,
and also
Saeed
you're
knows
like,
what's up.
Shannon finally becomes relevant.
Shannon becomes useful, she can speak French. It's so, yeah.
But I also like the way that bit is shot as well, where she grabs the transceiver, holds it to her ear, because obviously she's freaking out trying to translate it, but also makes like a really nice image.
Yeah, no, it's a really good... Everything about that scene is really well shot as well, because it's the green around them.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like an expanse of green hills.
Yeah.
That, like, just go on forever, and we're so used to seeing, like, the really enclosed jungle, or the beach, or the ocean, that suddenly it's these big plains.
Completely.
and it's like they're in a completely different place. And you get that feeling a lot when watching the show, that I think it is just the nature of the locations.
Yeah.
But I often get the feeling that they've gone somewhere completely new.
Yeah.
Even the bamboo field that Jack wakes up in at the beginning.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because you never really see that again.
No.
It's like they're there, and then they're on the beach, and then they're in the jungle, and then they're in the trees, and then they're on the plains, and there's like so many of these crazy, like, beautiful locations that change so quickly. Mm-hmm. You really get the feeling that they're just in this other world, because there's so many different places that they end up. It's brilliant. It's, oh my gosh. The ending of that episode is really, really intense. I still kind of, like, my heart kind of jumps up even watching it now, the third time round.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's like, again, you say that, like, we have these moments of, like, so the shoe right at the very beginning where you're like, Jack is not the only person, and Vincent, on this island. Then you have, like, the monster with, like, oh, there are other beings or creatures
there's
on
something
this
else,
island.
there's something weird going on this island.
And then you have this moment where it's like, there are other people on this island.
Other people, like, not the Crash.
Yes.
Someone else has been here.
Crashed here years ago.
16 years ago.
She's still here because they go,
because
if she was rescued, why wouldn't they have turned off the transmission?
Why is it still playing?
Oh, I love that moment as well.
And it's this idea that, like, either she's dead or she's still there.
Yes.
That, like, and oh my god.
And neither of those are good.
Insane.
So good. And also, like, there's a radio tower on the island.
There's a radio tower, yeah.
Hello.
So that's transmitting from somewhere on the island. So that means there's technology on the island somewhere.
There's hope, but then there's also no hope, like, in the same thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Because it's like, if they were to have found the radio tower, that would be like, we can transmit a message, but this woman has been transmitting this message for 16 years and no one's heard it. Or if they've heard it, they haven't come and got her.
Yeah. So it's like...
Which is arguably a worse. They've heard it and they haven't come.
We'll get there. We'll get around to it.
We'll get to her eventually.
Yeah.
No, it's insane. It's a crazy episode.
Such a good ending. I love that. So...
Any closing ideas? That's the end of the episode.
That is the end of the episode.
Credits roll.
I think one important thing that I think we need to discuss is, which part do you prefer?
Oh!
Which is your favourite pilot part?
Interesting. I think I'm going to go with part 1.
I think I'm going to go part 2.
Interesting. What about the best sequence in all of TV history?
Well, it does have the best sequence in all of TV history, i.e. the crash part. But mostly for that final scene. It is so good.
No, I'm with you. That final scene is incredible, but I just think that opening is so cool.
The opening is really well done and well scripted, but, like, in part 2 is when you actually get more of the characters.
You get more of the characters. I agree with you on that, which is really nice. But I think, like, you know, Jack and Charlie are some of my favourites. And Kate as well, to be fair. I really like her. So it's like getting them is nice. Yeah. And also, like, I think the fear of the supernatural stuff I really enjoy, more so than, like, the real people, the polar bear, that kind of thing. It's a bit more of, like, a real enemy. I think the fear of the, like, Godzilla monster in the jungle really, like, kind of freaked me out.
See, I think at this point in time, I disagree with you. I think it's more interesting to be like, who is this person who is speaking in French over the transmission, and where has that polar bear come from? Like, this is where you start to get the mystery element of the show really coming in.
I guess so. Mystery, like, real, kind of tangible mysteries, rather than what is going on.
Because that could just end up, you know, it could end up being another Jurassic Park movie, which I don't care about. Do you know what I mean?
That is something, side note, that our mother has a really bad fear of dinosaurs.
She does.
And she said the whole show, she was really terrified that there were going to be dinosaurs that would, like, come out of the jungle, because she was like, she's not going to know. And then
of course not.
They would, and then she was really scared the whole time.
Yeah, bless her. Yeah, I think it's part 2 for me. It is, because you also get the double flashbacks of Charlie and Kate.
I do enjoy the plane flashbacks.
I love that bit where Kate's struggling to get the oxygen mask, and Charlie with his chip nail varnish, like, ASMR.
It's okay. Tap it on my phone. Hang on.
Okay. Wait, how am I doing this?
On the screen. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, ASMR.
But I think the first plane scene is brilliant though, because what about Rose?
Yeah, but...
Rose and the vodka. I know you love the vodka.
You know I love vodka.
I know you love to drink.
I do love that bit with Jack and Rose, but the
Titanic.
Oh, is that a secret reference?
The Titanic, if it was a plane crash, not a boat. I do genuinely think they might have been named that way, you know.
Do you?
Yeah, I did. Nothing's ever indicated that way in like interviews or anything, but I think like there's something about them being like the first two you see on the plane and then it like crashes.
Maybe. I mean, I don't think he could be called anything other than Jack.
No, I do think Jack is his name. He's Jack. They like their kind of intertextual references in Lost. It's something that comes up a lot, is that there are a lot of references to like books or book characters or they like their philosophers, historical figures, authors, all that kind of stuff comes up. Actually, Stephen King, who we've been discussing, comes up a few times.
Into it, yeah.
And things like that, and I think like that might be a cheeky kind of first reference to another story.
It's
it
tenuous,
might be. It might not be, but it might be. But I think like a plane crash, the boat disaster,
yeah,
island, ocean.
I suppose it wasn't actually that long ago.
Actually, when did the Titanic come out?
Was late 90s, I believe, and obviously this is 2004, this is being filmed.
The Titanic came out in 1997, according to Google.
There you go, so
it's 7 years after.
7 years. So really it's kind of almost a contemporary reference.
It is a contemporary reference.
It's crazy.
And there are some other interesting contemporary references that we'll discuss later on.
Are there?
There are. It's an awful sentence to say. There are some interesting things that, looking at it now, 20 years on.
Yeah.
Stuff like Boone's flip phone in episode 1. Like, he is... You don't get it so much in this episode, but he's quite a rich character, isn't he?
Mm.
He's like a little rich boy, you know.
Yeah.
And he's got the phone, and maybe it's because he's rich that he's got a fancy phone. What would be considered fancy is that flip phone.
Yeah.
I think there's some stuff like that that's quite interesting to look at, you know, 20 years later, especially someone who wasn't alive when that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that episode. I think it's a brilliant pilot.
Definitely. I mean, oh my god! Imagine if the season didn't get commissioned after that.
I mean, how much more? What else do you want
from me?
What I would argue there's nothing more they could have done.
Some exec like, I don't know. I can't imagine people being interested in this.
Like, impossible. And I think they kind of probably knew that, given the budget and the effects and all that kind of stuff that we see in the show. But yeah, they even had they did a Comic-Con before the pilot even came out.
Yes, I
which
remember
is a DVD extra, where they did a panel and they showed the first, I think, pilot part 1, I think they showed at the panel. They had all the actors and stuff.
And it's so interesting to kind of get that snippet into fandom life and fandom existence before the internet.
What fandom was like pre...
it's just really interesting to see.
Pre, what we consider to be fandom. Yeah, no, it is. It's so interesting. And yeah, I think it's a fabulous pilot. I think it's the beginning of a brilliant show.
Completely.
Especially a brilliant series. Mm-hmm. I would say series 1 is the second best series.
We agree on that.
We think series 2 is the best series.
Yes.
2, well, I would say...
Don't make me do the ranking now. Don't make me do it, because I always change my mind on what I think is best. 2, 1 are the best 2.
We agree that series 2 is the best season of Lost, and that season 1 is the second best, and it's very close.
It is very close.
Very close ranking between the two.
We're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah.
The point being, we've done the two-parter pilots, and we're very excited to record more episodes about the upcoming series.
Because we love this series, and we love this show. Dun-dun.
So, now that we've met basically all of the main characters of the show, Velvet and I are going to treat you guys to a little something special. So this is a game that we like to play, which is quite simply called Subjective Guess Who.
Which you may have seen online.
Yeah, we didn't invent this game.
No.
However, we have adapted it to fit Lost. I believe that we can claim that.
Yeah, we don't use... So if you've seen it online, what people do is they use the Guess Who boards, and they pick a character, and then they'll ask things like, does this person look like they would, you know, I don't know, buy oat milk instead of regular milk? And then they say yes or no, and then they knock down the little characters until they've got one left and they see if it's right. But what
basically the premise when you have the visual Guess Who board is you have to ask anything that's not visual about the characters and just go off the vibes. The way that we play it is we have to guess the Lost character, but you have to ask any question that's not canon. So anything that's in the show, you can't ask and you can't be the answer either. So say, for example, like, I asked, what's your favourite book? And someone actually had said, my favourite book is this in the show. I can't say that. You got to say what you think their vibe of their favourite book would be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's more like 20 questions, but subjective. More so than the actual Guess Who board. But, yeah.
Should we just get into it?
Let's just get into it. I mean, you'll understand what it is, I'm sure. So, Ariel, you've thought of a character.
I'm going to go first. I've thought of a character. Velvet's going to ask me the questions.
Okay, so... What are this character's opinions on wearing makeup?
They wear makeup themselves.
Do they have a skincare routine?
Yeah, I think they have a skincare routine.
Okay, so skincare and makeup.
Yeah.
Okay. If they were to have like a dream pet, so not a regular domestic pet, any animal, what would they have?
Ooh, good question. Does it have to be a mythical animal?
No, it can be a real animal. But
one that's
so, say for example, like if I could have any animal, I would have like a pet gorilla, even though that's unethical.
Yeah.
Like, but not like a cat.
Is that true, by the way? Would you have a gorilla?
Yeah, a gorilla or a panda, I reckon. If I could have any pet.
Nice. I think mine would be crow.
Crow's a good one. Maybe like crocodile would be fun.
Or dragon.
Or a seal.
That'd be sick.
Seals are cute.
Seals are cute.
So yeah,
anyway,
that kind of thing. That kind of thing.
I think it's definitely a bird. A pelican.
Pelican.
That suddenly came to me, and I think it's correct.
Interesting. That's... Who would have a pelican? Okay. God, I'm lost. Hey.
Oh.
That was unintentional.
No way.
Would they play Animal Crossing?
They would play Animal Crossing.
They would. Would they be one of those people who's like obsessed with getting like the prettiest villagers and like unlocking every single possible thing you can unlock? Or would they be like a casual player who just like goes on to make friends with the little guys?
I think a casual player. I can see them getting really into like the fossil collecting specifically.
Okay.
And maybe the art as well. But, like, I feel like they wouldn't be asked to, you know, be travelling to the different islands to get the different fruits and stuff like that.
And not, like, trying to get the golden shovel and things like that.
No, and I'm not entirely sure what the golden shovel is.
It's, when you, like, if you get a visit from Gulliver, like, 45 times or something, then he sends you a recipe for, like, a golden shovel and then, like, golden axe and then you make them...
They never break.
I think that's the point, yeah.
Right.
But I've seen people, like, time travelling to, like, get it 100 times so they can then get the recipe and stuff. Anyway. Okay.
That would not be this character, I don't think.
So, okay, here's my question. This is maybe my last question before I guess a character.
Okay.
If they were to be, like, a niche internet micro-celebrity, what would they be famous for?
Do you know what came to me suddenly? I have no idea if this is... I could see them doing this.
Okay, go on.
Making those like satisfying videos of like bath bombs and like squidgy stuff and like
slime videos and stuff. Okay. Are you Claire?
Yes, it is Claire.
I thought so. Nice. No, I agree with you.
That, right?
And I think she'd be like faceless. I don't think she'd do like, you know,
and also
the kind of influencer that's like, you know,
she would not be like a mommy TikToker or whatever.
Oh god, no, she's not a mummy vlogger.
I think she'd make those satisfying videos.
Yeah,
she'd
no,
have,
I
like,
see
acrylic
that.
nails on and stuff.
Yeah,
and be, like, massaging some like gooey stuff.
I really see that for her. I think I agree with like everything you've said. The Animal Crossing thing really got it for me because when you said makeup, the makeup one, I was like, if it's like an extensive routine, it's either going to be like one of the girls or Charlie. Yeah. It was like, because Charlie has eyeliner on.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, it might be him. But I think he might get really obsessive about Animal Crossing.
I think he would pretend that he doesn't play Animal Crossing because he'd be like, nah, I'm only into like GTA and stuff.
Yeah.
But then
actually,
secretly,
he's like, his island is like the best thing you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Completely.
Okay, right, my turn.
Yeah.
So, let me think of a character. So, yes.
Does this person prefer watching films at home or in the cinema?
I think cinema, but I think they'd go alone.
Ooh, okay.
I don't think they'd be like, let's get the gang together. Either way, I don't think they'd be like, let's all have a movie night, or like, let's all go to the cinema together. I think like they'd enjoy going to the cinema, but they'd just like go and book the ticket for whatever they want to see, and they'd go and sit there on their own, and that would be it.
Okay. How does this character feel about escape rooms?
Ooh, this might give it away actually. I think they wouldn't want to go to one. But if they were brought to one, they would have a very good time, and also they would figure it all out very, very quickly. I think they'd be good at them, you know?
Yes.
Like, they'd be, like, setting records and stuff. But they wouldn't necessarily be like, I actively want to go to an escape room.
Does this character own an air fryer?
I don't think so, no. I think they're ambivalent towards air fryers. I don't think one of those people that's like, I'm never going to buy an air fryer because everyone has one. They're just kind of, they're ambivalent, but they don't have one.
Okay. I'm going to make a guess.
Okay.
I feel like I don't know enough to make a guess.
And you might, though. I think given the information I've given you, I wouldn't be surprised if you got it right.
Okay. Is it Saeed?
Yes! Ah! Yes! I was like, the escape room question is so going to give it away. Because he would be amazing at escape rooms.
Well, I was deciding, after the escape room one, I was like, it's either Saeed, Michael, or John.
Ah.
But I was like, John would definitely have an air fryer. And
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like Michael would feel strongly.
I think Michael...
I don't know which way.
No, he would either...
He would have a strong opinion.
He would
of
either
air fryers.
really, really love his air fryer and, like, swear by it and be like, what do you mean you don't own an air fryer? Or he would be like, if you own an air fryer, I want you dead.
Yeah.
He'd be like, I hate it, it's awful.
I get the vibe that he's a good cook, mainly because he's, like, the perfect male wife.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I 100% get the vibe that he's, like, cooking all the meals, like, at home, you know.
So that makes me think no air fryer. I think he thinks an air fryer is a bit
maybe
of a
an air
key
fryer is
thing.
a bit of, like, a cop-out. It's like doing stuff from the freezer. Like, I think he wants to have a whole meal, you know? Nice, that was a good round.
It certainly was.
I feel like we can't delve into the more niche characters. We've played this game, what was it, 3 hours on a train?
Yeah.
On a train, and we got into some really niche characters, like really
and some
small.
very obscure questions as well.
Very obscure questions. I think the first one I chose, I explained the concept to you in, like, London King's Cross Station, and the first character I chose was in, like, 3 episodes across the whole series or something, and you were like, why would you pick this as the first one?
I don't even remember that.
It was funny. Da-dun. Right.
Alright, cool. Wonderful.
We hope you've enjoyed.
We hope you have. Please
And-
give us a follow on Spotify and YouTube. You can find us on Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook,
and TikTok. And yeah,
Lost All Caps.
Lost All Caps
podcast.
everywhere.
I think it's
and-
Lost All Caps podcast on most things.
Yes.
Just
Should be.
you'll find us. I think
We're here.
we'll be there.
And yeah, just give us a follow, give us a subscribe if you want to hear more.
Yeah, like, comment, let us know what you think.
We'll be back next week
We
with
will.
episode 3,
Yes.
which is
Born to Run, I believe. No, it's not.
Born to Run's not for ages. I'm doing that again. And we'll be back next week with episode 3, Tabula Rasa,
I knew it! You see, I knew it. I knew it.
which is a fabulous episode.
It's a very good episode. Give us a follow on Instagram as well, Ariel Hebditch.
And Velvet Hebditch.
If you're, if follow me on that, I'll be posting about doing stand-up gigs and things like that.
If
And
you want to
other
see all
fun
of our
little
other stuff,
projects
all the
that
other
we're
stuff
doing.
we've got going on. And if you want to know more about us as people. And we will see you next week.
Bye.